Once upon a time, in the heart of the Yoruba village of Ilisa was a place where life thriving with the daily bustle of market traders, the rhythmic beating of drums, and the chatter of children playing. In the village, there was a tight-knit community where everyone had a voice, and silence was an uncommon occurrence. There was a young woman named Iniola, who was affectionately called Ienai among the villagers. Ienai, who was 22 years old, had a striking beauty and a heart that was as pure as gold. However, she lived in a world of silence due to being born deaf. The silence was both her shield and her solitude, keeping her isolated in a community that communicated through vibrant sounds. The strength and skill of Kehind, also known as Kenny, a 24-year-old hunter, was widely known in the forest. His skill was unmatched, and he displayed confidence that was akin to arrogance. Despite his tough exterior, there was a heart that was burdened by deep-seated anger and unresolved grief. His hatred was directed towards Iniola, whom he blamed for a tragedy that had profoundly scarred him. 2 years ago, his younger sister, Amora, drowned in the river. Iniola was with Amora when it happened. Iniola's inability to call for help prevented her from saving her friend, and Amora's cries were ignored. Kenny's anger towards Iniola was fueled by this incident, resulting in his grief becoming resentment. Iniola's days were busy with both solitude and work. She helped her mother weave beautiful, intricate fabrics that were sold in the village market. Ienai remained resilient despite her isolation, her hands creating beauty out of silence. She used gestures and written words to communicate, but few in the village took the time to understand her. Her work and the memories of time with Amora, who had been her only true friend, were her only source of comfort. The village was preparing for the annual festival of ancestors, during which the spirits of the dead were honored with music, dance, and feasting. The festival was a significant event that brought together the entire community to celebrate and commemorate. Iniola contributed by weaving the most intricate patterns into colorful fabrics that would decorate the village during the festivities. The beauty of silence was created by her hands, which spoke where her voice could not. Kehind came back from the forest with a lot of game for the feast. As he walked through the village, his eyes fell on Iniola, who was busy weaving. The sight of her rekindled his anger. Despite the pain caused by her silence, how could she sit there and create such beauty? He was filled with resentment that bubbled inside him and festered like an open wound. Each look at Iniola brought to mind the sister he had lost and the friend who had failed to save her. Baba Ade, the village elder, caught sight of Kehind's tension in his posture and the dark cloud that appeared to be following him. Baba Ode was a man of wisdom who was respected by all, and deeply aligned with the spiritual world. He called Kehind into his hut, which was filled with the aroma of burning sage and decorated with ancient artifacts. Kehind, he began, his voice gentle yet firm. I see a storm in your heart, he said. Unrest in our souls prevents the ancestors from resting. Your hatred is as deadly as poison. Seek out the truth and allow the spirits to direct you. Kehind listened but did not say anything. His heart was heavy, and his mind was clouded with anger. His pain hindered him from comprehending the elder's words. The seed of doubt had been sown, and it started to germinate in the fertile soil of his soul. As the festival approached, Kehind found himself haunted by dreams of his sister Amora. His mind was filled with the echoes of her laughter, a haunting reminder of the joy she had once brought into his life. She was always by the river in her dreams, calling out to him, but he couldn't reach her despite his efforts. He experienced vivid, almost too real dreams that left him restless and troubled. Kehind made the decision to visit Baba Ode again because he was seeking answers. In the elder's hut, there existed a sanctuary of wisdom where the fire flickered and the walls were adorned with symbols of ancestors. Baba, Kehind began with a voice filled with emotion. I am haunted by dreams of Amora. She calls out to me, but I cannot reach her. My heart is filled with anger towards Iniola. Baba Ode nodded, his eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. The spirits speak through dreams, Kihind. The spirit of your sister is seeking to guide you. In order to achieve peace, you need to confront your pain and move beyond your anger. The true message of the spirits can only be understood by you. With a troubled mind, Kihind departed from the elder's hut. His heart was a battlefield of emotions, torn between his hatred for Eniola and the love he had for his sister. He became more attentive to Eniola, watching her move through the village with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly. She interacted with the children, teaching them how to weave and creating a sense of community despite her isolation. As time went on, the walls of his anger began to crumble, revealing glimmers of understanding. Kihind approached Eniola one evening while she was sitting by the river, tracing patterns in the sand, determined to find peace. As the sun set, a golden glow was cast on the water, and the air was filled with the sounds of nature. Kihind observed her for a moment, absorbing the tranquil beauty of the scene. He gathered his courage and sat beside her, unsure of how to bridge the gap he had created between them. Eniola, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow, was the first person he blamed for Amora's death. I have realized that my anger has blinded me. It's important for me to comprehend what occurred on that day. Eniola's eyes reflected a mix of surprise and sorrow as she gazed at him. Kihind was seated by her gesture, and she began tracing the events of that fateful day in the sand with a heavy heart. Kihind saw through her gestures and drawings that Eniola had attempted to save Amora, but her silence was the biggest obstacle she faced. She ran in search of help, but upon returning with the village men, it was too late. As Kihind realized the extent of Eniola's pain and guilt, tears streamed down his face. His grief was so overwhelming that he failed to notice hers. He understood that they were both victims of the same tragedy, connected by their love for Amora and their shared grief in that moment. Kihind was left reeling by the revelation. The truth of Eniola's efforts to save his sister had subdued his anger, which was once a constant flame. He sought Baba Ade's advice once more with a heavy heart, hoping to find a way to honor Amora's spirit and ask Eniola for her forgiveness. Baba Ade, wise and compassionate, suggested a cleansing ritual by the sacred baobab tree, which is considered a symbol of strength, wisdom, and resilience in the village. At the edge of the village, the baobab tree stood with its ancient branches reaching towards heaven. The villagers came together at its base, presenting food, drink, and woven cloth as gifts. Everyone knew the significance of the ritual in mending the fractured community, which was why the air was thick with anticipation and the scent of burning sage. Eniola remained by Kihind's side with a quiet resolve conveyed in her expression. Despite the pain and misunderstanding she had endured, she was ready to face this moment, honor Amora, and seek her own peace. The villagers were initially unsure how to include her in the ritual, but they soon recognized her bravery and the strong bond she had with Amora. The ritual started with Baba Ade chanting, his voice resonating with power and reverence. He asked the ancestors for their guidance and blessings by calling upon them. Kihind followed the elder's lead and stood up and put his hand on the rough bark of the baobab tree. His voice was trembling as he began to say, Amora, he began to cry, I have lost myself in my anger and grief. My goal for today is to make amends. I respect your spirit and beseech your forgiveness. Kihind's words were hung in the air as the village watched in silence. The presence of the ancestors around her made Eniola step forward. She positioned her hand near Kihind's on the tree, closing her eyes in silent prayer. Baba Ade recognized the significant moment and poured libations at the root of the tree, symbolizing the cleansing of past wounds and the nourishment of new beginnings. With a voice full of sincerity and regret, Kihind spoke to Eniola. Eniola, I have been blaming you for a long time without comprehending your pain. It has come to my attention that you too have been affected. I would appreciate it if you could forgive me. Eniola observed the depth of Kihind's remorse as he gazed into his eyes. Her gesture was more effective than words at conveying her thoughts, as she nodded slowly. As she placed her other hand over his, tears began to well up in her eyes. When the villagers saw this act of reconciliation, they started clapping and singing, their voices rising in a harmonious blend that filled the air with hope and renewal. After the ritual ended, Baba Ade prayed for unity and peace with his final blessing. Kihind and Inyola, standing next to each other, felt a profound sense of relief and a new bond formed through mutual respect and understanding. Although the past was painful, it set the stage for a future of healing and unity in the village. Kihind began to see Inyola differently now that his anger had been lifted. He was impressed with her strength and resilience, and how she managed to find beauty in a world that often ostracized her. With each passing day, their bond, forged through the fires of grief and understanding, began to become stronger. They devoted more time together, acquiring the ability to communicate through gestures and expressions, discovering a language that was beyond words. Kihind teamed up with Inyola to weave, and she taught him the complex patterns and techniques that had been passed down through generations. He was taken aback by the way her hands danced over the loom, creating beauty from silence. In addition, Inyola found comfort in Kihind's presence and his readiness to comprehend her world. The village gained a new sense of unity due to their collaboration, as others began to appreciate Inyola's silent contributions. Inyola began to be more fully embraced by the villagers after witnessing the transformation in Kihind. She was seen not as a burden but as a valuable member of their community. Initially seen as a curse, her silence is now acknowledged as a distinctive way of experiencing the world. Inyola's gestures and signs were a delight to the children, who eagerly learned from her, bridging the gap between silence and sound. The harvest was celebrated by the village as the sun set over Elisa one evening. The air was filled with the sounds of music and laughter, as well as the scent of roasted yams and freshly baked bread. Inyola and Kihind watched the festivities unfold as they sat together. For the first time in years, Kihind experienced peace and belonging for the first time. Kihind began, speaking softly but firmly. Inyola, I am thankful for your patience and strength. You have taught me to transcend my own pain and comprehend the beauty of silence. Thank you. Inyola's eyes sparkled with tears that hadn't yet come out, and she smiled. She walked towards the village, writing words of gratitude and hope. They both observed the children's dancing and playing, and their laughter was a testament to the healing that had taken place. Kihind and Inyola joined the villagers in a dance around the fire as the night progressed. The air was filled with a new sense of energy thanks to the drum's rhythm, the flame's warmth, and the community's unity. Kihind came to the realization that the way to healing was not solely about forgiveness, but rather about accepting the present and creating a future together. As Kihind and Inyola sat around the fire one night, a gentle breeze carried the voices of the spirits. The stars above shone like diamonds against the deep indigo sky, creating a peaceful illumination over the village. Inyola closed her eyes, allowing herself to feel the presence of Amora and the ancestors around her, their quiet voices leading her. She sent a message to Kihind, expressing her gratitude for his understanding and the newfound peace they had found. Kihind was deeply connected to the spiritual realm after being touched by Inyola's words. He came to the realization that Amora's spirit had always been with them, leading them towards healing and reconciliation. His vow was to honor her memory by living a life that was compassionate and understanding, while cherishing the bonds of family and community. Inyola and Kihind's journey was celebrated at a ceremony held by the village, now united in acceptance. Baba Ode conducted the prayers, requesting that the ancestors bless the village with peace and prosperity. Their voices blended in harmony as the villagers danced and sang. Inyola, in the company of her community, felt truly seen and accepted for the first time. Baba Ode approached Inyola and Kihind as the ceremony came to a close. His voice was filled with warmth and he said that the spirits were pleased. They see the strength in your unity and the beauty in your resilience. Keep honoring them through both your actions and your heart. Kihind and Inyola gave a nod, their hearts filled with gratitude. Although their journey was not yet finished, they were prepared to face any challenges that may come their way, united by their common purpose and love for each other. Kihind and Inyola's bond grew stronger with each passing day, as the village was united in acceptance. New projects were led by them, fostering a sense of collaboration and understanding among the community. The fields flourished and the village thrived under their joint leadership. Kihind's anger and grief had been replaced by a sense of gratitude and love. Whether it was working in the fields or spending a quiet evening with Inyola, he found happiness in the small moments. They had faced many challenges on their journey, but they emerged stronger and more united.